Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out our Altar Sleeves. Support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Ruben Bressler.
Hey, it's Kamigawa Eve, everybody.
So good. I'm so happy. This is great.
Yeah.
Like, we came back to Kamigawa 15 years later. This was like the set. This was my first big set after I came back to Magic in 2005. And, you know, it was just like, this is incredible. And I'm loving it. And it's great. And I'm very excited. And the set's really cool. That's what's great about it. The set doesn't suck. There's nothing weird about it. I think they really went with all the stuff they can do, and the reconfigure stuff is great. And the technology and the old stuff, the enchantments and the artifacts, man, I think they just crushed it. I love it. We also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Innistrad block cards. Ruben?
Some great choices to go with here, but I went with the Masked Hero, who wrote, "To be completely honest, and maybe there is a certain amount of personal bias, I'm a little astonished that Invisible Stalker is nowhere to be seen on this list. It's an innocuous card, but it changed the limits of what Wizards was willing to put on a creature. It can't be blocked, and your opponents can't pinpoint removal it."
Yeah, that is a hell of a Magic card that I am pulling up right now. Invisible Stalker originally showed up as an uncommon Innistrad. It was a blue and generic mana for a 1/1 uncommon human rogue that has hexproof. This creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control, and it is unblockable. Now, the real crime here was what's the cleaver called exactly?
Butcher's Cleaver.
Butcher's Cleaver was also a card, and so when you put the cleaver on the unblockable, untargetable monster, you would die.
Yeah. But with, as annoying as having an unblockable, untargetable, uncommon in the set was, in concert with Butcher's Cleaver, that effectively made a 2 mana and a 3 mana combo that were both at uncommon that were kind of unbeatable. Mm-hmm. It was a home run from a flavor standpoint. It was a home run from telling the story of what the Invisible Stalker is. The Invisible Man is one of the most classic horror stories of all time. Been told dozens of times, most recently last year in a brand new movie. Mm-hmm. So to get Invisible Stalker on a card, and that art is indelible with the hat that's floating above the jacket. I mean, I love the card Invisible Stalker from a standpoint of the story that it tells.
Yeah, they use it in a lot of comics. We just saw it in even The Boys has an Invisible Man character, right?
Well, but yeah.
Hey,
spoilers.
Come on now. All right, it's been years.
Well, he could still be around. We just don't know where he is.
Yeah, he's around there somewhere. But to get the real scope of the problem, just so we're clear, Butcher's Cleaver was a 3 generic mana uncommon equipment that gave the equipped creature +3/+0. But hold on. It also, as long as the equipped creature is a human, it has lifelink, and that's a human rogue. That's not a spirit,
right?
And so it became a 4/1 untargetable lifelinker. So not only was it like a good threat, which is great and all, but it was the fact that it also had lifelink with the cleaver that just put it over the top. So it was one of the only kind of sort of besmirches on the format of Innistrad Limited, but that's kind of it, really, right? Like,
yeah, that was kind of it.
That was about it.
And also, I think that as the format developed, people played more with the wider sweeping effects and learned to mitigate that damage. They played more ways to deal with the cleaver, for example. And so, it wasn't quite so bad. I know that for the first 2 months of that format, people were like, "Oh, no way to beat this." And people finally started playing ways to beat it. I don't think it was nearly as bad as people say.
It wasn't that bad, but it also wasn't that good,
Yeah, I agree.
It was really annoying and really
they just shouldn't print 2 mana hexproof cards. They just shouldn't. And also blue hexproof cards.
Well, blue hexproof.
I've always thought that blue should have Shroud and green should have hexproof, and they should live side by side in harmony.
But that's not the world we live in.
A lot of people just think hexproof shouldn't be a thing anymore, period.
Yeah.
I'm not 1,000% against that per se, because again, it's just like you can't target a thing, you can't interact with somebody, and it's like literally the whole mechanic is don't interact with somebody, and it's like, okay, What are we doing here? Math is for blockers. Congratulations to the Masked Hero. Please contact us on social media for your prize. That's contacting Magic Mikes, remember, on Facebook, on Reddit, on social
Twitter.
medias, on Twitter. Hit us up with a DM. We can do that. Please contact us that way. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. This set is dope. I'm loving it. Just loving it.
The set is spectacular, and I don't see a weak spot in terms of the mechanics and the flavor. So I'm excited to get to playing it now and see if it plays as good as it looks.
Couple more days.
Couple more days. All right. Well, Ruben, get us started here with number 10.
So my number 10, I think that if you know me, you know I was going to have Kappa Tech Wrecker on my list. There was no way I wasn't putting the first ever Ninja Turtle in my top 10. A generic and a green gets you a 1/3 Turtle Ninja with ninjutsu of a generic and a green. Kappa Tech Wrecker enters the battlefield with a death touch counter on it. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a death touch counter from it. And when you do, you exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls. There's a couple of these ninjas in the set that enter with a keyword counter that give you the ability to remove the keyword counter for an effect. And this one is highly playable. I mean, a 1/3 for 2 is just good value. Having death touch early is super relevant. This can trigger your other ninjas also to get that death touch counter back if you play it early, because your opponents are unlikely to want to block a death toucher. And it's also able to deal with a whole bunch of stuff that you might not otherwise be able to deal with.
Yeah, this card's really sweet. There's a ton of artifact and enchant creatures, so this could easily just be a removal spell, tacked on. For example, you play it early, you don't even ninjutsu it in, it has death touch. They play an enchant for an artifact creature. They can't block because it's a 1/3, which is a really awkward thing to be blocking. It's going to brick all their 2/2s, all their 2/1s, which there are plenty. There's some 2/3s. It's going to brick those. So now they have to chump it and just die to the death touch, or they could let it through. You remove the death touch counter to kill their creature, and then you can possibly rinse and repeat if you can then, keep things going. This card is great. I think it's the best of this type of mechanic. There's a cycle of these. I think this is the best one.
Yeah, I hope to God someone at Wizards at some point made the phone call and was like, I guess it's Nickelodeon who owns the rights these days to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but like, where's that secret lair at? Could we have had 4 different turtle ninjas and they all did something a little bit different, which would be kind of cool? Like I want to keep dig into that more. I think that's brilliant. But what we got was great. We got a Splinter type character. We got a turtle ninja. I love that. That's amazing. I just, keep going. Just keep going. Yeah. That card's great. Nerd Girl, what's number 10?
So my number 10 is going to be a card that's not super exciting. And, it's going to be kind of playable in some decks, not so much in others. This is something I picked for the sake of limited, and I wanted to give it some spotlight because the channel mechanic, though it is a pretty heavy theme in the format, it actually doesn't have a ton of support in any card that says, when channel, do a thing. There's not a ton of like discard synergies or anything like that, and not a ton of return graveyard effects in these colors either. So I wanted to, show some spotlight to Colossal Sky Turtle, a 7 mana, 4 colors, green, and a blue for a enchant creature turtle with flying and ward 2. You can channel for 3, 2, and a green. And you can return target card from your graveyard to your hand, or you can channel for 1 and a blue to return target creature to its owner's control. It is a flying ward 2, 6/5. That's a very large flying turtle. The art is beautiful. It's a relevant creature type, and it kind of has a channel ability that represents each color that it is. And also at 7 mana, this is going to be the easiest set to cast 7 mana cards that we have seen in the last 2 years. There's 3 elf mana dorks in addition to sagas and spells that get land out of the graveyard and ramp you up. There are creatures that ramp you up. There's never been more ramp.
So much ramp. Look, there's some magical mana costs in Magic. There's certain things that you can't do it just tips a little bit to the next one. And one of the best examples is Regrowth. Regrowth as a return card from your graveyard to your hand. Cool. It is not okay to have it at 2 mana. I don't know why. It's just because the world and the way the magic is and the spells are and the so-and-sos, it's not good. It's too good. But at 3 mana, it's perfect. And it's so sort of innocuous and, harms very little. They also put Unsummon on here for an extra mana sort of tax on top of it. But still, 2 great tastes that taste great together on top of a giant flying turtle.
I was going to say 3 great tastes, because this is not only an uncounterable unsummon, an uncounterable instant speed regrowth, but also a fine finisher.
Yeah.
Flying 6/5 is nothing to sneeze at, much less ward 2. So I love this card. This card's
also an enchantment in the enchantment color.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean this is like one of the big like signpost uncommons. You can build your deck around this. This is your big finisher. Like this is awesome.
It's also its own discard outlet if you're playing any reanimation spells, which I also appreciate.
Absolutely. So for my number 10, I don't know, it's a weird card. Like I don't know sometimes how I feel about mythics anymore. Because mythic doesn't mean too much, I think, these days, in terms of like Wizards will put it on almost any mana cost and almost any kind of effect or whatever. And so the fact that this is mythic is kind of whatever, but I also can't not recognize the power and how ridiculously game ending it's going to be when you start tapping all your mana and you start tapping all your dudes and you get to play Convoke in 2022 with Explosive Singularity. This card is a monster. It is 2 red and 8 generic mana. So for 10 mana, it's a mythic sorcery. Better be good, right? Well, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may tap any number of untapped creatures you control. This spell costs 1 generic mana less to cast for each creature tapped this way. It deals 10 damage to anything.
Hey man, sure, whatever. Like this is such a good. This is stoke the flames juice.
It's super stoke, and that card was awesome.
Yeah.
So super stoke 2.0, bigger, bolder, uncut stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I just know I'm going to die to this with my opponent being hellbent far too many times over the next 2 months, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also feels a lot like Urza's Rage, right? It's got that deal 10 damage.
Big splashy.
This thing's great.
Oh yeah. This is the type of card that when you're playing Arena and like you see like the little highlight on each creature of them, you're like, oh my god, no, please. Yeah, it's going to be the Singularity.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on here to number 9. Ruben, what you got?
So again, I don't know. You just saying what's the difference between a mythic and a rare? This is the most mythic feeling rare I think I've ever seen. I guess I understand why they put it at rare, because maybe it's a little too weak to be a mythic, but the story that it's telling and the mechanic that it has screams mythic to me. So, but I'm irregardless and nevertheless, I'm just excited that we have Mech Titan Core as a card that exists. Mech Titan Core is a artifact vehicle 2/4 for 2 mana that crews for 2 and has the following just excellent combination of words for an ability. Pay 5 generic, exile Mech Titan 4 and 4 other artifact creatures and or vehicles you control to create Mech Titan, a legendary 10/10 construct artifact creature token with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste. That's all colors. When that token leaves the battlefield, return all cards exiled with Mech Titan Core, except for Mech Titan Core, to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control.
Wow. And it also has crew 2.
It does have crew 2. It is a 2/4 that crews for 2.
Yeah.
It is a lot of words.
Yeah, if you were to swap the mythics or whatever out for this one, the mythic I just said for this one, I've been totally okay with that. This feels pretty insanely mythic to me. Who doesn't want to put together the Power Rangers and Voltron, and this is them coming together? Like if you look at the different art, the alt art versions, it really shows through that this is 5 pieces coming together for I can't remember what the Yu-Gi-Oh monster is, but regardless, the one that has the 5 cards and you do it, you win. Exodia, that's right. Thank you.
Okay.
Or it's Voltron, literal actual Voltron, not Voltron Commander, actual Voltron. Yeah. So I love it.
I'm a little disappointed that it doesn't trigger the Eater of Virtue. There aren't a lot of keywords in this format, and the Eater of Virtue says that it gives +2/+0 to a creature, and that's it. When a creature dies, you exile that creature, put a virtue counter on it, and it gets those ability and keywords. This is the only monster that has like all of them, and there just aren't a lot of keywords spread throughout the set. So I feel like it's kind of a shame to take that dream away from us if you're going to have this card.
That's a good point.
And I was not expecting them to really be able to sort of put this together, as it were. But
it makes me feel good.
It makes me feel very happy. Nerd Girl, what's number 9?
All right, my number 9 is a card that is typically not going to be main deckable in Limited, but I actually think it really is this time. Plus, it's got amazing, adorable art that everybody will love to see, and that is Lucky Offering. This is a 1-mana sorcery spell that says destroy target artifact with mana value 3 or less. You gain 3 life. There are a lot of vehicles. There are a lot of artifacts that are small that give you incremental value. The creature artifacts all tend to be kind of on the small side. Even the vehicles, there's like a 3-mana 6/6. There's a ton. Now, I'm not saying we should main deck this, but it is a 23rd playable card because it's going to find something. There's so many artifact little creature things in all of the colors, especially in red. So definitely looking to have a bunch of these in the board, and also look at that art. It's so amazing.
I mean, when you can have whole swaths of cards that are like, if you control an artifact and an enchantment, and knowing that they've put enough in the set that that's a thing that you can do, this becomes way more playable knowing how many artifacts they've put kind of everywhere.
Yeah. There are also some pretty busted small artifacts that you're going to see pop up in Limited all the time. Much less something like Mech Titan Core that we just talked about that you're definitely going to want to get rid of.
Right?
But there's also, just runaway trash bot, right, is just going to be out of control pretty quickly. There are some multicolored uncommons that are artifact creatures that are signpost uncommons, first pick kind of cards that you're going to want to deal with. And this being able to deal with it for the low cost of 1 mana and you gain 3 life, that's pretty crazy.
So apart from, best I can tell here, 10, 14, 16, 17, 18. So there's around 18 artifacts of the 24-esque in the set that are going to get hit by this card. So
sure.
That's just the artifacts, not the artifact creatures. That's just the colorless artifacts and
colorless, yeah. And there's a lot.
But there's a lot, man. It's a ton. And some of the rares are left at. It's great.
Going to be especially useful in the white aggressive strategy. Traditionally, that's like a red-white motif where you want to go like creature 1-drop, creature 2-drop. Then on turn 3, you'll play another 2-drop and a Lucky Offering to kill what they played, and that's going to feel real good.
All right, so for my number 9 here, this is a card that just has some wild stuff on it. It's a really weird. This is one of those cards that, like, if you'd gone back to the halcyon days of Kamigawa releasing, it's like, Rob, remember, one day there's going to be a legendary artifact creature, equipment jellyfish, and you're like, did you just say words to me? And then you just blink out of existence and never say, and have no idea. The reality chip is a hell of a Magic card. It's like a future sight that you can reconfigure onto other stuff, which is also awesome. It's a very cool story component. Like, even just the look of it, it's just so neat. And the fact there's chips and Magic's also cool. The reality chip is a blue and a generic mana for a rare legendary artifact creature equipment jellyfish. That's an 0/4, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and as long as it's attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library, and you reconfigure this for a blue and 2 generic mana, which is basically the listed ability. So for a blue and 2 generic mana, you attach it to a creature, and it stops being a creature. Now it's the equipment part, and you reconfigure only as a sorcery, and while it's attached, it's not a creature, so if they wrath your board, and this is equipment, it becomes an 0/4, and you won, you did it, yay! So yeah. That's the card.
Very good. I mean, early defense, right? 0/4 for 2. Going to put the brakes on literally anything anyone's going to play for the first couple turns of the game. Then, once you've established some amount of dominance on the board and you equip it up to something else, you've got yourself a future sight. You have no maximum hand size anymore. You are just going to go off completely. I think this card has lots of potential.
This card's going to be good in lots of formats, I'm sure. I'm a little sad that jellyfish doesn't get to attack or do anything.
I mean, if you gave it like a +1/+1, it'd swing. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that is a mechanic in the format, certainly. But yeah, jellyfish are always interesting and, something that we play a lot in limited regardless, like the one we saw that untapped in Ikoria. Like, so jellyfish is not a thing that we...
Glimmerbell.
Yeah, old Glimmerbell. That was cool.
I have no idea how you remember these names. I can barely remember the set names, man.
I just realized that you can reconfigure onto another reconfigure card. So you got to make sure you know which one's the creature.
Which one's which? Yeah.
The equipment.
Is the blade of the Oni a jellyfish, or is the jellyfish a blade of the Oni? Yeah. That's going to be difficult to figure out for sure.
But like, people remember Experimental Frenzy. Remember how you couldn't play lands off the top? You can play lands off the top. Like, remember when you were going off? That's what it's happening here. So like, that's why this card is exciting to me and should be really sweet. Let's move on here to number 8. Ruben, what's number 8?
So a bunch of the sagas that came back in this set are going to be playable in every format that sagas are playable in, which is every format. And the one that I'm super excited for is a tale that they tell of the previous Kamigawa, the previous visit, that harkens back to a well-beloved story and a well-beloved character with the fable of the Mirror Breaker. 2 generic and a red gets you a rare enchantment saga. Chapter 1, you make a 2/2 red goblin shaman creature token with, whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure token. The second chapter is you may discard up to 2 cards. If you do, draw that many cards. And then chapter 3, exile this saga and return it to the battlefield transformed under your control into Reflection of Kiki Jiki, which is an enchantment creature goblin shaman that is a 2/2 and has the following activated ability. Pay a generic and tap. Create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
It flips into Kiki.
Yeah. This is like kind of history of Benalia. So history of Kamigawa almost, in that it gives you a bunch of 2/2s. It's very easy to just win a game with just this card.
Just making copies of stuff. I mean, they put the safety valve in there. The 1 generic mana tap to make the copy is the safety valve. So if they accidentally print a Pestromite or something, they don't accidentally the whole format. But beyond that, you're basically getting 2 bodies, 2 2/2s for 3 mana, along with the ability to copy stuff, and you rummage twice in the middle of it. Like, awesome! Like, that's all good stuff. I'm all happy with that.
I think the other big part to note here is the treasure tokens. The make a treasure token thing is actually really, really relevant in a format that has a ton of things that require you to sacrifice artifacts. And this is going to let you do it for the low cost of basically free, and you get to do it repeatedly, which is really cool.
Nice. My 8, 7, and 6 are higher on somebody else's list.
Wow. See you later.
So you'll hear from me later. So Nerd Girl, what's your 8?
My number 8 is what I think to be the best of the Shrine Circle as far as limited goes. And this one's really cool. I'm glad that they decided to go back to shrines to show some support to the fan base there. The people who love shrines really, really love shrines. So this is neat. And that is the white one. The
Goshintai of Shared Purpose.
Thank you. You're great. Love you. 4 mana for a 1/3 enchant legendary shrine with vigilance. So it's a little bit of a nice blocker there as well. And then it says at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine you control. This is going to be a very, very good mechanic for limited, and it's playable on its own. It doesn't need any other shrines for this to be good.
Oh yeah, this card is dope.
Yeah, it just it pretty much automatically pays for itself as soon as you play it. I also like that this cycle triggers on your end step. The previous cycles of shrines, the Hondens either triggered on your upkeep or during your main phase, and this one sort of like finishing that out is really cool.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And note that there's not a creature type shrine, just like there's not a creature type food when Ginger Brute was a creature, but it was an artifact creature. Food golem.
And there's not a creature type equipment, even though we have a jellyfish.
Yeah, that is also an equipment. jellyfish thing. Yeah, but cool. I don't care, man. We're back to shrines. We're back to shrines and the sparking the joy over here. And remember how cool shrines were. And by that I mean remember kind of how bad shrines were. But everybody kind of had a shrine deck back in the day. And when you got it to work, it was just so annoying and stupid. And then you'd play the 5-color one, and they really start yelling at you. It was fantastic, and I love it. And the new shrines are dope. Let's move on here to number 7. Again, mine's higher. Ruben, what's your number 7?
I'm just in love with this ability or this type of card. Every time this type of card comes into standard, I go, yep, I'm building that deck. I played Replenish when Replenish was in standard. I played Open the Vaults in extended and in standard.
Yeah.
I even played like a Retether deck for a little while when that was allowed to be played, and we get a new one, and it is like the biggest and best of the Open the Vaults that we've ever seen in brilliant restoration.
Ooh.
3 generic white is a hefty cost, so you'd better get something good for this story spotlight sorcery. And you do. Return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh boy.
I mean, this card is made to do silly, ridiculous, absurd things. Like, if anything, this card feels like it did come from like 10, 15 years ago, where there's like 1,000,000 mana and do something dumb, bye. That's what you did back then. It's fine.
Yeah. There's a whole cycle of these, and I like this one a lot. I think it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. Sweet.
With so many enchantment creatures and equipment artifact creatures as well, you're going to get a lot of board presence in addition to any sagas that have died on the way, any sacrifice ability artifacts that you've gotten along the way. So this is not a card. We've said this several times about many cards. You just have to play Magic to make this card good,
and particularly this set.
So this is obviously difficult to cast, but one of the cards I kind of thought it played very similar to was Not Fine and Finality. Oh no, sorry. Same colors. Green, black that lets you get all your cards out of your graveyard and play them.
Oh, the Harness. Harness Infinity lets you swap your graveyard in your hand.
Yeah, but like the same kind of feel where it's like you just sit on it forever and ever and ever until you get this nice beefy graveyard, and then you're just like, ha, got him. You thought I had 1 card.
I wish that card was good. 15. I assure you. But Brilliant Restoration is also a fantastic choice to be targeted, but with Mizzix Mastery. Let's go.
I like that.
Faithless Looting, put pretty something good. Stupid, or whatever, and Brilliant, and then Mizzix Mastery, and let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Nerd Girl, what's number 7?
All right. My number 7 is a card that I just like. It just makes me happy. We're seeing a lot of these 4-mana red creatures, so why not have another one? In fact, this set even has 2, but we're going to start here with the Thundering Raiju. This is a 4-mana 2 red for a creature spirit that has haste, and when it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures other than Thundering Raiju, which means it can automatically come in and hit for 4. For 4 mana, it's a 4/4 flyer with haste. It doesn't have flying. No, because it doesn't count itself with the
You can put the counter on itself.
But it doesn't count
itself.
itself.
Never mind, I thought it was a 4/4.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm doing
No, even if it is a 3/3, so it puts the counter, it gets 4, right? And it doesn't count itself as modified, unfortunately.
Right.
I thought
that. Other modified creatures.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
But you can put it on something else and then still hit them for 4 and then keep doing them each turn, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the kind of card in multiples is really scary. Like, just does really dumb stuff after a while because it's putting counters on everything. It's counting everything else. It's triggering like crazy. It's scary. It's not a flying evasive dragon. I don't think it's necessarily, but it's not really fighting for the Goldspan dragon slot. You know what I mean? No. It's looking for the 4-drop. So, as a hasty monster, I like it.
I mean, I don't know what world you live in, but Goldspan dragon is a 4-drop.
Right. There you go.
Fair, depending on what dwarves you're playing with, for example.
Right. Yeah, we haven't really had this kind of so it's been since Savage Knuckleblade, I think, since we've had a 4/4 haste that was just a land dragon on turn 4. If I'm trying to recall other.
Wasn't that a 3-mana card? It was a 3-mana card, right?
Yeah, it was a 3-mana card, and then you paid a red to give it haste.
That's right. That's right.
And that's just good enough. The reason why I started thinking about this was I was looking like, what is the card I remembered playing that was a 4-mana 4/4 haste? And it was Lava Hounds. When I first started playing Magic, and that card was great. It would be terrible now. Well, but
Savage Knuckleblade wasn't very good. You remember? Like everyone thought it was going to be insane, and it was like it just didn't.
But yeah, this card's spectacularly good. But beefs up your creatures that came in before it also, which is huge. It's able to, do something after you get wrathed or before you get wrathed. It's a really good card.
I love it. Let's move on here to number 6, the final of my hires for the moment. Don't worry, I got more where that came from.
Oh, good.
Ruben, what's number 6?
So we got a new cycle of mythic legendary dragon spirits. And my next entry here, my number 6, is I think the best of the bunch, partially because of the color that it's in. And it's the ability to put things into the graveyard easily. But also just because of everything that it does altogether, even if it weren't in black, I think that Junji the Midnight Sky might be the best of the bunch. Junji the Midnight Sky is 3 generic black for a 5/5 legendary creature dragon spirit with flying and menace that might as well be unblockable. That might as well not. That could just say reach and unblockable, right? But when Junji dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life, or put a non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under you control. You lose 2 life. So both of those options are spectacularly good if this gets wrathed away. Either you get back something relevant, for example, the 4/4 haste spirit, or you steal something from your opponent's graveyard. Or if your opponent's down to 2 cards, sure, we're in a control matchup. I'll get rid of those. In the meantime, I've got this 5/5 beater. And then whenever you try to exile it, I will just sacrifice it to my Deadly Dispute or my Village Rites. Very easy to get the trigger going.
Yeah, this is, I think, the best dragon, especially looking at it from a limited perspective as well. I think it offers the highest upside with leaving something on the board. It's also the least likely to just kill them on its own. And again, once it is answered, that biggest creature out of either graveyard is very likely to hit something super relevant.
Yeah, the problems keep coming, essentially. This was my number 8 because I couldn't have this list not include some dragon spirits, but we're getting there. But Kakusho back in the day, they were 6-mana 5/5s that did a really cool ability. That's awesome. Well, Magic's changed a little bit. Creatures gotten a lot better. We got to shave a mana off that. We got to keep the 5/5, which is cool. We got to give them another evasive ability because what's better than 1 evasive? 2 evasives. And then we give this.
And what's better than 1 dies trigger? Your choice of 2 dies.
2 dice trigger, including a safety valve on the second option. If you got a loop going, you can't keep it up forever or you'll die. And I really appreciate that as well, is that they kind of knew, well, this could be stupid. We're not really sure why, but we're just going to stick that in there just to make sure.
Now we can still body double.
Sure.
We can still body double our Junji back and forth.
I mean, yeah.
But
we can make them lose 2 life forever and then off they go. But sure, but it's all sorts of fun. This card is awesome. I love the dragon spirits in this set. They're all super cool, and I'm looking forward to playing all of them. Nerd Girl, what's number 6?
All right. So my number 6 is going to be one of our archetype sort of hallmark staple cards. I think it's really interesting in what it does. I think it is one of the stronger ones in the set on its own, even though it does, kind of lean towards everything that those color pairings want to be doing. You don't actually need to be. I think this is going to be something, even if you happen to just not have those synergies, we're still very happy to have this, and it's super unique and cool. And that is Prodigy's Prototype. This is a 3-mana colorless white-blue artifact vehicle. It says whenever 1 or more vehicles you control attacks, create a 1/1 colorless pilot token. This creature crews as though it had 3 power, not 2. I kind of misread that the first time. It's only crew 2. So after you crew the first time, it'll crew itself. It is a 3/4 in power, which is really tough to block and deal with when it's only 3 mana. On turn 4, there's not a lot of things that are going to be able to block this profitably. It might bounce, but you're still getting those pilots and getting to do a lot of really cool things.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
please tell me there's a vehicle deck that's like cool and sweet. And if there's not, go make alchemy changes until there's a cool vehicle deck because I need that in my life.
Well, there's a new vehicle commander that says that this can be your commander, which I absolutely love. That's blue-white. So they're trying to make this a thing.
Sure.
And the new pilot tokens that crew as if they're taller is a great way to start with that. We've got this. We've got things like Hotshot Pilot. There's a bunch of token makers that make pilots that are able to drive your trucks a little bit easier. And this absolutely is going to be the one that you're like, it ties everything together.
It makes tokens that are taller, that are ballers. They wish they had a girl who could do it. They would call her. Be absolutely
Wow.
terrific.
Oh my
Shot-
God.
shot
Yeah,
caller.
that's right. Whip there. Whoop,
Good,
whoop.
good. That's well done.
Oh man, it hurts.
We want to number 5. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is I snuck this one in because it's a ninja, but I snuck this one in. It's not, I don't know if this one will be a constructed card. I don't think it'll be a constructed card. It'll definitely be a limited card. But when I read this card, this is another card that I read and it just made me happy. Like when we did our Innistrad like way look back, this is the kind of card that I'll look back on and be like, this card makes me happy to read it because it's just this perfect marriage of Magic rules text as flavor text. It tells you exactly what it is while also being like a decent limited card. And that is Futurist Operative. Futurist Operative is a 3 generic and a blue for a 3/4 human ninja. As long as Futurist Operative is tapped, it is a human citizen with base power and toughness 1/1 and can't be blocked. And it has an activated ability of 2 generic and a blue, untap Futurist Operative.
Card's dope.
Just a citizen. Don't mind me. I'm wearing my fake glasses and mustache. And of course, you can untap it mid-combat and still deal 3 damage, or you can get your ninja triggers in. I think this card's really cool.
It's very cool. It's everything I want ninjas to be doing. It gives you that thing to ninjutsu in your other things, triggering more relevant, attacking, dealing combat damage to a player triggers. But also, it kind of removes the downside of the pay. It's usually 4 or 5 to make a thing unblockable for the turn. They're usually around 3 power as well. Like they're usually 3 4s or 3 5s. This removes the downside of those in that sometimes you don't want to spend the mana. You don't get to do anything. Whereas this, it's like, I still get to hit you for 1, even if I don't want to spend the mana. So even if you don't have those ninjutsu synergies, this is just a strict upgrade get in that damage for the in-between turns. It's really neat.
Yeah, the design on this is just absolutely terrific because I think in many ways, Wizards has almost gotten too used to double-faced cards, to show sort of a phase shift of something. And this phase is kind of in, but then it kind of phases out.
Yeah.
And it's super cool with like the artwork and the name and the ninja and the mechanic. And it's just like, it's all there.
The word citizen on this card is just the most beautiful. I'm sure that it didn't initially have the word citizen, but then one day they were like, what if it was a human citizen that was its disguise kit? And that is just perfect.
It's doing so much heavy lifting. I love it. Nerd, what's number 5?
All right, guys. My number 5 is one of the sagas that I think is super fun. It's a mythic and only 3 mana, and I think it packs a heck of a punch for that early on in our curve. So it's Yugen's Defends the Temple, 3 mana. Chapter 1, it's going to give you a 1/1 green human monk creature token that can tap to add a forest. And then chapter 2, you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 creatures. So it's giving you 3 power on the front side across 2 bodies. And then it's going to chapter 3, it's going to exile the saga and flip into a dragon spirit. That's a 2/2 flyer. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. When you do, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature. As long as you control 5 or more modified creatures, this gets +5/+5 and gains trample. That's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of words, and this is the one
That's
of
a
the
beatdown card.
yeah, this is a mythic that kind of snuck up on me a little bit, and that it just feels kind of innocuous, right? You're just like, it's making an Atlanta Rail for 3 mana, right? It's putting
Well,
some
yeah.
counters out there. And if you flip it, that thing is a 7/7 really easily, and they've given you tons of tools to get that to 7, to a 7/7 status quickly. Not to mention the ability just sits out there. Every creature ever just has the best kicker until you get rid of this thing. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the backside on its own, if it does nothing else, if you get rid of all of the text, it's still a Windrake, right? It's still kind of a slightly slower 2/2 flyer for 3 mana. That's also giving you a ton of other power. It's giving you ramp, it's giving you modify. And then it's got the ability of that fox that we saw from Eldraine, where it's like when you play a thing, you can dump all of your excess mana into it to pump it and also modify it, which is very relevant in this format. It's an enchantment in the enchantment colors. Honestly, this mythic kind of does it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's low cost. It also gives you a flyer in mono green, which is not something we actually get that much of. And you get those Llanowar Visionary stats pretty much immediately. In addition to 3 power for 3 mana. I'm already happy with that, even before we flip into a giant just F off dragon.
Like, if I feel like there was a world where maybe that middle ability on the backside didn't exist, where whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you weren't able to pay just X mana to put X counters on it, but now you do, because that means you can turn on itself really quickly. I mean, again, if you have a 1-drop, you have a 2-drop, this thing makes another creature, this thing makes 2 modified creatures, and then it flips over, and like, how much harder do you got to work? Remember, you could play multiples of this thing, and it would just start going bananas. And yeah, this card is dope. And I plan on crafting 4 of these basically immediately. Yeah. So there was, now I'm not exactly sure where in the storyline this happens to be. And I do want to note, I would like to talk about the artwork, the alternate artwork and their extended artwork that is done by, let's see, Fuzi Choco, looks like. In particular, because I'm not trying to go into any stupid crap that's going to derail us. The point is, I love this card. Originally, there was a card in, I believe it was it Champions or was it Betrayers? Either way, it's 2 white, 4 generic mana, and it was Final Judgment. And that card exiled all creatures, and that was a big deal at the time. And it didn't have a ton of wrath effects, and the wrath effects weren't that great, but and it was a big story moment, which is cool too. But to come back to it, and to come back to Kamigawa, and to have a 6 mana spell that can exile creatures is cool. But we're better than that these days, and Farewell is just all the options. It's just all the options. This is one of the coolest, like, sweetest cards that they put just in a white deck, period. All of your white EDH decks will want this as an option, I feel. 2 white, 4 generic mana for a sorcery that is rare, that says choose 1 or more. Oh yeah. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, exile all graveyards. Just get rid of it. Go away. It doesn't get rid of planeswalkers, but that's okay.
That's fine.
Everything.
Fuzi Choco is a very well-known artist in like Fire Emblem, in just like children's books, does a bunch of chibi art for various artists all across Japan. Extremely popular artist. And the card name, just I don't know how we've never had this card. It's so simple.
In Spanish, this card
Adios.
is adios. It's adios.
Adios.
Honestly, why was this not like Sayonara? Am I wrong? Like, was that a bridge too far? Sure. Wouldn't it be cool, like, if this was Sayonara?
Bon Voyage, if we had French cards.
That'd be kind of cool.
I like that this offers a ton of flexibility, in that there are so many artifact or enchantment creatures in the format that very often this is going to be a one-sided board clear, because you don't necessarily have to pick creature. Like, maybe you leave them with a creature. Instead of naming creature, you just say artifacts or enchantments, and you get 3 of their creatures because you don't happen to have any of those. They get to keep 1 base creature, but you get to keep all of yours. It's super flexible. You just pick whatever things they have more of than you, and you have obliterated the game state, because it is not just one particular card type. It's all of them. So good.
And of note, Fuzichoko has done one other Magic art before. When we got the alt Japanese War of the Spark Planeswalkers, Fuzichoko did the lots of scrolls around Tamio, Collector of Tales art.
I love that one.
So bringing them back to do another piece of art is a great idea.
Let's move on here to number 4. Ruben, what's number 4?
I'm already grinning. This card, look, sometimes a card doesn't need to do much to make me happy. This card needed to have its name, and that is all it needed. I don't care what the rest of Spinning Wheel Kick is. It's called Spinning Wheel Kick, and that's all it needed to do. That's all that Spinning Wheel Kick needed to do to get on my list. It's also a pretty decent removal spell in limited, I guess, but that's not why it's here. Spinning Wheel Kick is XX green for a sorcery that says target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. There's enough creatures with Death Touch that, if you pay 6 for this, you'll be able to 2-for-1 somebody. There's enough mana in this set that you'll be able to do a decent Pelucranos impression and wipe somebody's board with a Spinning Wheel Kick out of nowhere. But also it's just called Spinning Wheel Kick.
I mean, sometimes we just have a bonus card that brings us joy and it gets put on the list. That's what we get to do. It's our show, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
You get to do a Spinning Wheel Kick.
As a limited player, I appreciate it. This card should be on a top 10 list for the new set, but
there you go. I mean, you got, look, for 4 mana, you get the 1 creature / planeswalker for 6 mana, then 8 mana, then just go up, and the Spinning Wheel Kick just continues. And you can do that with your Ninja Turtle.
It's not even exactly. It's really good with the Ninja Turtle
because it has Death Touch,
and it's not even fight. So you just get to spin all the way around.
That's right, like a record. They wrote a whole song about that.
Right round, baby, right round.
Nerd Girl, what's number 4?
So my number 4 is one of the most surprising cards to me in the format. I was expecting artifacts to be good. I was expecting ninjas to be good. I was expecting a lot of things about this set. And for the most part, it was pretty easy to tell. I don't think there were a ton of surprises. We expected there to be a dragon cycle. We expected there to be artifacts. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty just straightforward. What I was not expecting was the best ninja to not be in blue-black. What in the heck is Springleaf Avenger? This 5-mana insect ninja with ninjutsu 4 says that whenever Springleaf Avenger deals combat damage to a player, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. And it hits for a walloping 6 damage for only 4 ninjutsu. This is a big boy that offers a ton of card advantage in a color where we don't typically see it. This is awesome.
It's funny that Jim Davis was talking about, back in the day, you got to remember that ninjutsu was not a constructed mechanic. Ninja the Deep Hours kind of got there, but even that was kind of like one deck that was really cute that worked with Hexproof and Shroud and stuff at the time. But it's just not a very good constructed mechanic. So if it looks constructed playable, it had to be pushed that far. And so to pay 4 mana to get 6 in there, that's kind of got to be the rate. Otherwise it's not really, the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, a lot of the ninjas that we had the first time were not worth it unless you got to ninja them in. This is a 5-mana 6/5. I'm fine just casting this.
That regrowth stuff, right? Cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
Over and over.
I'm also happy that it has an ability, it has a text box, but it's a 5-mana 6/5 on a ninja, right? We were paying 5 mana for 3/2s originally. The fact that this can also pack a wallop either as a ninja or just as a casted card is huge.
Yeah, this card is dope. I like it.
We should have ninjutsu this on to the card that you posted, the 1/1 citizen, and just be like, take 6.
Yeah.
Got him.
Go.
That's what
Man,
we do.
6 is a lot.
It is for only 4.
Bunch of man. All right, so this is where I was alluding earlier, my number 4 here, that there would be dragon spirits that are discussed. Yeah. I just have such a warm, glowing place in my heart for the legendary dragons. I won events off the back of those legendary dragons. And, one of them, and my favorite of them that I got to use in a variety of ways, thanks to Greater Good, was Yosei. Now, Yosei is dope. And so let's see, what's Yosei 2.0 going to be? Well, that's Owl the Dawn Sky. Owl the Dawn Sky is a white, and 3 generic mana, so 5 mana for a 5/4 flying vigilance. That's a mythic legendary dragon spirit, of course. And when Owl the Dawn Sky dies, choose one. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. 7, that's a lot of cards. That's more than 10%, and that's if you drew no cards off your deck. So look at the top 7 cards, put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Like, for example, new Planeswalkers that came out, or a super cool 4-mana creature, or 2 2-mana creatures, or a 3-mana creature and a 1-mana creature. Just, the world's your oyster. You put those on the bottom, put those on the battlefield, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Or, if you'd like, because you're feeling fancy, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle. If a vehicle deck exists, this is going to be in there. A go wide white deck that just needs a big monster, this is in there as your top end of the curve. And it's just a badass dragon spirit that I love. That's it.
Yep, I agree. This is, all of the dragons are great. We definitely expect them to be, and I think this is one of the better ones to be sure.
Oh.
Yeah, this one's very impressive. I would be surprised if this one didn't see play. Both choices give you interesting options in any number of board states. Either you have a million creatures in play already, or you need to reestablish your board state after this goes away. And Owl is 5/4 for a 5-mana flying vigilance. That's Dragon Lord Ojutai stats. So, based on just numbers alone, it's going to see play.
It must be answered. Well, my number 3 and my number 2 must be answered by someone else because they're on somebody else's list higher up. Ruben, what's number 3?
So I fail to see how this card will not be constructed playable. I could be surprised, but I doubt it. When you compare drawing of pure cards to looking at the top couple of cards and choosing some of them, typically you can compare those 2 effects and arrive at a similar conclusion on power level. The one that come to mind to me is Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time. Very similar cards, slightly different decks want them, but they're both extremely powerful, and they both feature cost reduction. We have long had a spell called Thoughtcast. We also now have Thoughtcast Monitor, which is just pure card draw and has affinity for artifacts. And now we get Reality Heist. And I can't imagine that Reality Heist won't be the dig through time to Thought Monitor's Treasure Cruise. 5 generic blue for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 artifact cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
This card's going to be nuts in Modern Affinity or Modern Robots or whatever the hell they call it these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know if it goes straight into the regular old Affinity deck. I'm sure there is an artifact deck that wants selection over velocity in much the same way that there are decks that want Treasure Cruise and not Dig Through Time and vice versa. However, there has to be some sort of artifact combo thing that is more of a Dig Through Time style deck, and that is going to find a home with this.
Yeah, I think this is even playable and limited with the amount of artifacts that there are.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we make treasure tokens for basically nothing these days and everything pops out of treasure token and we got treasure tokens for days and it reduces the cost while paying for the cost is going to be a whole other thing. And yeah, this card just seems way too powerful to not do something dumb. We're just not sure how kind of dumb it is and what nature that will look like. Nerd Girl, what's number 3?
Number 3 is my 1 higher.
Well, I join you there. Let's move on here to number 2 again. My number 2 is somebody's number 1, and that's okay because it's dope. Ruben, what's number 3? Or I'm sorry, what's number 2?
Number 2 is another card that I think everybody acknowledges is very, very, very good. It reminds people of a card that exists already. So much so that it is almost identical to a card that has had tournament pedigree since it was printed. It is also in a new color as opposed to Scavenging Ooze, which is in green, we get Lion Sash, which is in white. Lion Sash is a generic and a white for a 1/1 artifacts creature equipment cat that has reconfigure of 2, which allows you to attach it to a creature or unattach it from a creature, where you reconfigure only as a sorcery, and while it's attached, it isn't a creature. You pay a white to exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. So you either get a Scavenging Ooze, or you can turn something you control into a Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah.
There's a cat. Hey, the cat showed up for the lion card.
It did.
I
for the
did
Lion
hear-
Sash.
I heard someone say they would pay more on Patreon if they saw more cats. So I'm just saying, throwing that
Here we
out
gotta
there.
get some more
Perfect.
cat involved here.
This card is really good, even in limited. I think that, you know, the downside to it not being a Scavenging Ooze is that life gain is really, really important when you're going up against more aggressive decks. But in a limited format, that's fine. And there is so much recursion, even at the common and uncommon level. That just channels get you back a card. Ninjutsu, get back a card. So, you know, make sure you guys are using this very liberally to just remove your opponent's graveyard, even if you're not going to get -1/-1 or +1/+1 counters. Just make sure they have nothing that they can interact with.
Get that out of there. I mean, this is a Scavenging Ooze that you can Stoneforge Mystic for, and
Yeah.
that's incredible, quite frankly. And is the real benefit of having equipment creatures that are creatures, but they're not, but they are, but they kind of not, but they kind of are. And even in that format, when they kill the thing that this is equipped to, then you could just, it's still there. It's not gone away. Like, that's awesome. This card is sweet. This card in particular was my number 6 because
Nice.
I love it. And I think it's great. And
Gonna find a home in modern, gonna find a home in historic. Like, it is a hate bear. Might even find a home in vintage, honestly.
Man, the cat's dope. Nerd Girl, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a card that I think everybody's very excited about. It's one of the storyline centerpieces. And, you know, just in general, a card people really, really like. And they've had alternate arts for it already. And it's very themey and just something I think everybody's very excited about. And to boot, I think it's great in multiple formats. And that is the Wandering Emperor.
My number 3.
As it were. 4 mana, 3 loyalty planeswalker that has flash, and as long as this is the first time it's entered the battlefield, you may activate her loyalty abilities any time. You could cast an instant, so she doubles as a combat trick. Her +1 is put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains first strike till end of turn. Her -1 is make a 2/2 samurai creature token with vigilance, and her -2 is destroy target tapped creature, gain some life.
Exile.
Even better.
Even
Exile.
better.
So you can kill something that's too big. You can sneaky trick, first strike, kill something and put some counters on something. You can make a relevant creature type that is a samurai with vigilance if that will kill the thing. And all of that for, you know, the low price of 4 mana at instant speed. There's nothing not to like here.
It's my number 3. This card's sick.
Jeez. Yeah, that card is
Like, it's a blowout
absurd.
in like every possible sense. It's a
Yep.
blowout. You give them first strike in the counter. It's a blowout because you made a 2/2, you untap the 2/2, and it gives that kind of Gideon feel. And then it's still a -2. It exiles a giant monster, and you're gaining life on top of it. Just like, wow, that's incredible.
I feel like worst case scenario, this is a 2-for-1.
Worst case.
Worst case scenario, it's a 4 mana instant speed 2-for-1,
Yeah.
where you exile a tapped creature and make a 2/2.
Mhm.
That's insane.
Yeah, you exile, make it 2/2, untap, make it 2/2, and it's still there.
That too.
It
Yeah.
didn't die. You know, normally I feel like the rate would be they would only give you 2 of those, and then she got to go. But no, we're rocking and rolling still with 2 samurai. Say go, still have an awesome planeswalker hanging back.
Yeah.
And heaven help you if the plus ability is actually what you can kill their creature with. Like if you have a thing and you get to do that, and then they're never going to get to attack you ever again because you kill their tapped and attacking creature, whatever. Like, it's so good.
Right, and the tokens that she makes have vigilance, so she can still be protected the whole time. Like, God almighty, this was my number 3 for a reason. This card is very expensive, as I'm not surprised, and it is super good. This card is crazy sweet. All right, let's move on here to not my number 2 because it's higher, but it's somebody's number 1. I'm guessing it's Ruben's. Let's move on here to our number 1. Ruben, what's number 1?
Look, as soon as this card got previewed, I was all over it. Everyone was all over it. I think it's pre-ordering for like $50. Like, I need one for every commander deck I ever build. Everyone needs one for every commander deck we ever build. It's in the conversation for like, is this better than a basic land kind of discussion?
Wow.
This whole cycle is pretty cool, but Boseiju Who Endures is just maybe the best legendary land ever printed.
It's up there.
I mean, it's so hard for it's insane. Is it your number 2?
It's my number 2.
Yeah. Nice.
Boseiju Who Endures is a legendary land that enters the battlefield untapped.
Doesn't even give you that drawback. It says, nah, dog, you got the green. It's cool.
And it has the ability Channel for a generic and a green, and discard it. You can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for a land card with a basic land type, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. And the ability actually costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature that you control. So among things, we don't even need a legendary creature in play, right?
No,
We're just going to cast this for abrupt decay mana. Like, this just already is...
it's like the greatest naturalize of all time. It's uncounterable unless you have a stifle.
What's the new green black destroy and then they search for a land?
Assassin's Trophy?
Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah.
This is just Assassin's Trophy that's uncounterable and is also in your mana base.
Yeah. Can be there in your mana base, just hanging out.
Crazy.
I mean, it sounds like silly constructed player stuff to me, but it sounds good. I'm going to play it.
It's also a removal spell in limited.
I know.
No, this is amazing and limited. To be clear, you would always play
I
this.
know.
Yeah, but and I'm not saying just for those listening, just so you know, this card's sick and limited, but like it's one of those that's like it's sick and limited, but it's also just like game changing in some constructed formats because again, when your mana base starts being your creatures, your threats, and when your mana base starts being your answers, like the more that you can do that, the more that you can kind of meld all that stuff together, so it's there when you need it. And like, oh God, I drew a second copy of Boseiju. Oh, that's the worst. Like these channel abilities fix all that, and it just makes these damn things amazing.
It also harkens back to something that before Snapcaster Mage was printed, Tiago Chan wanted to make a land that had a channel ability. It was the channel Force of Will, the channel counterspell.
Right.
And we're finally getting that cycle of cards.
And it's so funny because back in the day, it was 2 blue, 2 generic mana, discard, counter target spell. And they were just like, oh, that's crazy. That's no, that we could never do that. And like, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if it were 5 mana, but if that would be the one on the blue land, would not be surprised at all. That said, Nerd Girl, what's number 1?
My number 1 is a pretty fun card. It's, I don't know how much it's going to be in constructed. I don't think it'll last the test of time to make it in eternal formats. It'll probably see some play in constructed. I have some faith, but I'm not the best judge of that. But I am really, really excited to play this in limited. It is everything I want in a bomb, and killing people with these kinds of cards is always super fun for me. And I will splash this no matter what. I can't, even if I have to splash both colors, I think I will still try to play this card. And that's Hitsugu Devouring Chaos. This is a 4 mana legendary creature ogre demon that allows you to pay 1, sacrifice creature, scry 2, or you can pay 2 and a red to tap, exile the top card of your library. You may play this card this turn, and then when you exile a non-land card this way, it deals damage equal to its mana cost to any target, not player, not specifically whatever, literally any target. So you just get to just kill everything and get card advantage. So good.
I mean, in black and red, this whole thing, and this creature also has the specific different foiling versions that are some are more rare than others. Another crazy thing that they're trying. One you can only get at premium stores, which is another thing. Like the value in this card was just like through the roof. This is a card I'm like, how is this not mythic? How is this not your poster child mythic of the set? It's an awesome character that came back from being awesome from back in the day. Like the abilities are totally sick and just way above and beyond what I was expecting.
This card's absurd. And the multiple like fluorescent foiling of various rarities. I mean, we joke and we chide about that, the amount of printings that exist of various cards, but cutting through all of that, it's kind of dope that there are like 85 highlighter versions of this card. Also 4/4 for 4 in black. I mean, we've come a long way since Daryl lore.
Oh my god.
This thing, fixes your draws. It deals damage. This thing does
Gives
everything.
you a sack outlet. It fixes the top of your deck for its second ability, for God's sake. Like it slices and dices, and I'm very glad it's on your list. And I believe through the process of elimination, my number 1 is Nerd Girl's number 3. We'll confirm that here real quick, because this card is just freaking dope, and I absolutely love it, and I think it's amazing, and I love the fact that it's the buy box promo for the set, which is also sweet. It for God's sake, they made a card that let Emrakul be a ninja, and when you let Emrakul be a ninja, you got me. You had me at ninja. Like, I'm just saying. Satoru Umezawa is your number 3.
Yep.
There you go. This card is absolutely sick. It's a black, a blue, and a generic mana for a 2/4 legendary creature human ninja. Whenever you activate an ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This ability triggers only once each turn, and each creature in your hand has ninjutsu of a black, blue, and 2 generic mana. That's incredible. You would say I'm something of a ninja myself,
Right.
And in you go, because that's awesome.
Yeah, this card is really cool. I think I love the art, for starters. Like, this was one of the best arts in the set. Like, there's a lot of good art, but the color, it's so vibrant, it's so cool. I actually kind of wish that they had done this in some sort of interesting foiling. But no, this card is really awesome. It asks a lot of you, so you do need to kind of build around. You have to have creatures in your hand. You have to have evasive creatures that can get in. And sometimes it's going to be just not so good when you're behind. But that said, the upside is insane.
Is monumental.
I also like that Satoru does not himself have ninjutsu, which is interesting. But it sort of superpowers every ninja and non-ninja that you have in your deck and in your hand, which I think is an interesting way to go about it. And once again, the color scheme is spectacular on this Anna Pavleva art.
He's the ninja boss. He doesn't have the skills. He's just the boss.
But he's the boss. Yeah, but he lets everybody else be awesome. I recall them saying that they worked really hard to kind of get the numbers right on this, and I think they did. 3 mana 2/4 is very important. It's going to stick around for that 4th turn, so you can actually use its ability, which is nice. And again, just the magical Christmas land of that last ability is just, it's absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
All right. And that wraps up our top 10 Kamigawa Neon Dynasty cards. You'll see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at coolstuffinc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
I could do an entire another top 10 of this set.
Extra top 10.
This set is so cool and fun and good. Every card feels good and fun and interesting, and I just love it. And I hope you guys enjoy Neon Dynasty when you get a chance to play.
I'm just really impressed, the ask was big and they did a really good job with it. Let's move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and AlterSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching or listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.